back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today, we're going to do a project starting with some poster board, making a pattern, go with a chrome tanned leather that I got from Kentucky Leather and Hides. You can check them out at KentuckyLeatherandHides.com. And we're actually going to make a holster for my DeWalt drill. When I use this for projects, I've noticed I've been picking this thing up, setting it down, picking it up, setting it down. I'd walk from here to there, I'd lose it. And I said, I'm tired of it. So what I'm going to do, make me a holster. I'll have this right on my side all the time. So when I'm using it, I know where to find it, and I don't have to bend over 50 times to pick it up. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to do it without any stitching. So we're going to use all hardware to put this thing together. It should go fairly quickly. And come on in and let's get started. Alright, so what I want to do is just do a basic pattern on this because most of these drills are pretty similar in size. So if somebody wanted one of these, it'd be easy to go ahead and just redo it using the pattern. So what I want is just basically a holster for it. I mean, you could do something that had openings and just use straps or whatever, but I think I'm going to go for the actual holster. It depends on how much material I have, how much leather I have. I think I have plenty for what I want to do. I'm just going to do a fold over belt loop and use rivets to put this thing together, and no stitching. So kind of like if I was doing a holster for a handgun, I can lay this thing down and kind of get an idea what I've got going on as far as size. I think I want to come all the way up to under the trigger, so I can, right where my fingers, these fingers, not my trigger finger, but these fingers grab that handle. I think that's where I want to go to. So I'm going to just make an outline around that. Then I'm going to make me a mark on this side, on the backbone, just where I know I want to come to across here. Then I'm going to tip this up, and I'm going to find my center point on the top and the bottom. And I can set that down to get my straight edge. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw me a straight line on that center point. Now, when I fold that over, obviously I've got a lot going on here as far as the thickness, and much thicker than a handgun would be. So I have got to make sure that I have plenty of leather out here on this edge when this folds over, so that I can put some rivets in this. So I am going to go ahead and just come down about an inch to 3/4 of an inch at the end here. Make sure it's plenty long enough, and then when I get to that area that I traced, I don't know if you can see it, but the area that I traced around, I'm going to go ahead and start curving up like so, and I want to come right up to underneath this trigger area. Then I've got my mark that I made on this side at the top where I want it to stop. So I want to come up to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this a little bit. And normally on a holster for a gun, I normally come down and swoop like this, down toward the bottom or the tip, but I want as much mass holding that as possible. So I'm going to come around like so and meet at that center mark. Now, here's the thing. I've got to have enough material when I fold this over to do my riveting. So this thing, and this is just a starting point, but this thing is approximately 2.5 inches wide. So if I take half of that width, which would be 1 1/4, I'm going to start down here at 1 1/4 and just go up and follow that contour that I just drew out and mark that at 1 1/4, and I'm doing that about every inch or so. Then I can get a visual on what that's going to look like back here on this side. And it doesn't, down here toward the bottom, it's pretty close. It's going to take a little bit more at the top here. So I'm going to start. Notice I didn't draw a line because I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to go 1 3/4, and then when I get to my 1/3 inch, I'm going to go 2 1/4. And again, this is all just dry fitting this pattern to make sure we're going to have plenty of leather. Now that looks like that's going to be plenty of leather to fold over and attach. So let's go ahead and take this out. I'll go ahead and remember, you can always trim this pattern down and then I'll come around that corner there and meet that line right back with the top line that I had over here. So as you can see from this original line that I traced around the screw gun at my widest point out here to allow for all of my leather to be attached to one another, or to use my rivets, I've added a 2¼ inch piece from that, because when you wrap around that 2½ inch thick, that's going to take a lot of leather. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, this side would be the finished side of the leather, so this is the unfinished, and I'm just writing that on here so it's a reference to me, so I don't mess up when I get my pattern done and start cutting out my leather. So this is my unfinished side. So what I want to do is I want to have this center line, I want my fold over for my belt loop. So I'm going to come from about 1½ inches away from the edge here and come up, because I want this to be a pretty good size belt loop, because these are fairly heavy. So I don't want it to be very thin, I want it to be wide. And I want it to fold over and be 2 inches, the opening to be 2 inches. So I'm going to go up approximately 5 inches. That'll give me a 1/2 inch to run my rivets across to attach it. So go up about 5 inches from the peak or the top of that holster right there, and then I'm going to come across. And I'm just putting a little radius on that outside edge so it's not just straight across, pointed at the end. And that'll allow me to fold that under and then put some rivets down there, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So what I want to do, this is the way I normally do my gun holsters too, is once I get my pattern done and I kind of get in my mind how this is going to work, and I'll roll that over, and it looks like I have plenty of room. So I'm going to bring this up just a little bit more. I could go ahead and take my knife, and I'm going to cut out this side of the pattern. So I'll move this stuff out of the way, and I'll only cut out this one side. I'll stay away from the center line. So I'll follow that contour of those lines that I drew on there, and I'll stop right at the center line, and then what I'll do is I'll cut this all the way across above my strap, and And at the bottom I'll cut that straight across so you can see what I've got is all this waste I can take out of here. Now what I can do is take my stylus and my straight edge, go back to my center line, and all I'm going to do is score that with that stylus, the edge of it. And what that does is that breaks the grain in the poster board so that I can fold this over. And then before I do anything with that, I can kind of set that down in there and see what I've got on this side if I put those two together. So as I roll that, you can see how thick that is, how much material that takes up. So what I do is I always fold that over to make sure I have enough room to put my either my stitching or to put my rivets in this case. And it looks like I do. That way I can go ahead and proceed. So what I do is I'll take this, fold it over, and if you feel like it's just not enough material when you dry fit that, like when you come over and pull this over like this, say, man, sure could use another 1/4 inch, then what I would do to make it real simple is just take your straight edge, mark over another 1/4 inch at the top from that center line, 1/4 inch at the bottom. Take your straight edge, make a line, or you could just score it. Then score that line, and then take your knife, cut out the excess at the bottom, that 1/4 inch, and then come further at the top toward the center, and then fold that again on that new scored line. And all that does is move everything over a 1/4 of an inch. So that gives you a 1/4 of an inch more in the center here when you go to fold this over and do your rivets or your stitching. So this side is going to be the side that folds back and goes ahead and gets riveted here for your belt loop. This side doesn't have that. So what I need to do is fold this over, trace the pattern from the other side, and you can go ahead and trace it all the way up if you want. And then I'll look under here and I'll see where that ends. And I'll just make a little mark right there. That's where that ends. And then it comes up here. So this will be my finished side. This will be a full piece all the way up. So this side is the one that I'm really concerned about what it looks like when it comes all the way over. So we'll take a look at that. match those up a little bit. I'll make a little mark, see how close, very close to that side. So that's where we want to be. And then I just make a line between those two marks, the one I had in the center and the one that I just made down here. Now that can be cut out from the center line. Follow that till I get to the line I traced. And then I'll follow that. And what that does is that's going to give me, I can go ahead and cut this back piece out now for my strap, and that'll give me my pattern. Cut that away from the big piece, get that out of the way. I can go ahead and finish the radius at the top, cut it across, and then there's my actual pattern. And at that point I can go ahead and measure, I say 2.5 inches, I believe was what I was going to do here, so that gives me a good 2-inch placement for my belt loop. So I'll just make a line, do the same thing with the stylus to score that so that it folds easily. And then there's my belt loop. And that gives me approximately, that'll give me 2 inches. So I can fit a 2-inch belt in there no problem once I put my rivets in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my rivets from the back here. Let me look and kind of get an idea. It's plenty straight. I don't really want it at an angle or anything. So these two will come together like so. That's plenty of room because you don't want it too tight going in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I am going to put, let's see, let's come in three-eighths of an inch, up a 1/4 inch, come in 3/8 from the other side, up a 1/4. I'm just putting a little mark where I want these rivets, and then that's 2 1/4 inches apart, so I'll put another one right in the middle at 1 1/8. So what that does is that gives me 3 rivets to hold that for my belt loop. Then I need to figure out how many rivets I need to hold my drill. So I want to put one starting in this area. And then I want to end down in this area. So I know I'm going to have two there. One at the start at the top, one at the bottom. And then I want to see how much, maybe if we go every inch. And I'm about 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch away from the edge. Yeah, about 7/16. So let's see, that's pretty close if I go right at an inch apart. Alright, so that's going to give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rivets around that side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, I've got my pattern, but I'm going to go ahead and take my punch and I'm going to punch out those holes so that I know exactly where to punch those holes when I go to my leather. So let's go ahead, and I've got my poly cutting board here. And notice once I start, I'm not taking my hand off of my pattern material because I've got that folded over and I don't want that moving. So I leave my hand down on there with pressure, the heel of my hand, as I punch those holes out. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my belt loop on those 3 holes. And I'll have it folded over also. Then when I go to punch my holes in my leather, it'll line up because I won't fold it over first. So there's my pattern. I've got my belt loop, I've got my fold over for the holster, and notice it's fairly large, but so is the screw gun. So I'm ready to transfer this pattern to the leather. So that's my next step in this project. So there's part 1. This is going to end up being a 2-part series because I don't want it to be one video so long. So part 1 of the battery drill holster, using no stitching, and we've got the pattern done. It turned out really good. You can see it's going to fit nice. I've got my holes for my pattern, I've got my belt loop and the holes for it, for the rivets. So I appreciate you coming along for part 1. Come back next Thursday, check out part 2 and the conclusion. And as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.